Hello and welcome to CadoinkStudios. I'm Cadoink,
And I'm Boisterous.
and we are here today with another pro replay for you. We have spawning in the top position of Metalopolis, the red Zerg player EGIdrA, and his opponent is none other than WhiteRa, spawning as the blue Protoss in the right position of Metalopolis. And yeah, they're close air, so Boisterous, tell me what you think of Metalopolis, tell me what you think of close air positions and Zerg versus Protoss and all that goodness.
I gotta say, I love Metalopolis, but in any game where there's close air positions, I think the Zerg always gets more out of it because the Zerg doesn't really need to scout.
Yeah.
They'll get their Overlord, they'll get their spotter over there, and then they can just scout with the Overlord. They don't really need to send out a drone. And we have WhiteRa going for what looks like the FE build, where you just wall off with your Nexus and a Forge and a Gateway.
Yeah.
So going for a really fast expand, obviously. And Metalopolis is just a map where things like this have become acceptable. Like Zergs will usually fast expand, Protoss will usually almost always fast expand, and Terran will cheese because that's what Terran does.
Yeah, I think this is very interesting. We just got finished casting a game in the Gold League where we saw a very similar thing coming from the Protoss player. So this is very cool to see it done, the proper way, the perfect way by players as good as WhiteRa and players as good as EGIdrA. So I'm very excited to see how this game plays out. We do see that EGIdrA is going for the spawning pool before his hatchery, which I think is very cool. A little bit different. Normally you see that very fast hatchery from EGIdrA. He does love to drone up really hard, and he goes for the macro games most of the time.
Yeah, especially if he's against somebody that's going for like Nexus first.
Yeah.
Usually you see just Zergs, as soon as they see that pylon on the low ground, they're just like, all right, he's just going for an extremely fast Nexus, and then they drop the hatchery right away. However, EGIdrA is one of those players that doesn't like to get cheesed.
Yeah.
Because we've all seen the after effects of when he does get cheesed. And usually it's not that pretty. So I think that he almost in every game that I see him play, for the most part, ever since like, I don't know, MLG in the middle of last year, he's just been going for the spawning pool to open up almost every game, just to make sure that that never happens to him.
Yeah. And one thing is he may want to get this queen up as early as possible, because he does know that WhiteRa's a player who likes to do very interesting things, and one thing he's really good at is a carrier build, and in fact this kind of fast expand play lends itself towards airplay, and being in cross-air positions, just everything lines up in favor of going like kind of a void ray harassment sort of thing. So I think it's kind of wise by EGIdrA to make sure he's getting this queen up, getting the spawning pool up, and trying to prevent any kind of air harassment, so that
and especially
go ahead.
And especially with the changes to Phoenix a couple patches ago, we see a lot of Protosses stepping up and going for that airplay because there's no real downside to it.
Right.
Void Rays are really good at countering roaches and even Hydras to an extent and all that stuff, whereas Phoenixes are just all around good. They can disable units, for however long, basically just as fast as you can hit the G button. And with how many Phoenixes you have, you can almost completely clean up a Zerg army. And with the range upgrade, it's just ridiculous for sniping Overlords and things like that.
Yeah. We do see that EGIdrA is being very active at keeping control of the map, keeping vision. He does have control over both watchtowers, and he is taking a third. His Overlord placement is great, keeping him kind of in the back of EGIdRA's base, but also being kind of leery of, being picked off by stalkers or by sentries or by anything like that. And we do see a Stargate going up at this time for WhiteRa. And I don't believe that EGIdrA has seen it. In fact, he has not at this time. So this is going to be interesting to see when WhiteRa gets his air up and when EGIdrA will see that and what he'll do in response.
Yeah, knowing EGIdrA, he's probably just going to drop an Evo chamber and then start building extra queens, if he does see that before the Void Ray pops out. Because getting Void Raid while playing Zerg kind of sucks, because there's not a whole lot you can do about it. You need to kind of pull your queens to a standard position. You can't really defend every expansion with queens unless you know about it beforehand and you start building them early. So it's very, very annoying. We have a Zealot getting encircled at the Xel'Naga Tower, and wow, that was really impressive micro. We have like 3 Zerglings in the red, but no Zerglings died in that engagement.
Yeah, these players are the best at what they do, and EGIdRA's so good at his micro and keeping things alive. And I'd like to point out, look at his third, look at his nat, look at his main. They're all very nicely saturated, very even bases. And at this time, he's working on his Roach Warren. He's working on getting his layer up. So very solid play by EGIdRA. And at the same time, WhiteRa's playing very solid too. He's getting another gateway up and also working on that Void Ray. And an Overlord does come in at the exact perfect time. He's going to be able to spot this Void Ray because you can kind of see it morphing in the gateway, in the Stargate.
Yeah, the main issue for EGIdRA is that one Void Ray is already out and it's harassing one of his queens. However, the second one is popping up and pulling into the position that queen was in. So he should be okay with this, considering the fact that his Evo chamber just wrapped off. So if worst comes to worst, he should be able to switch out and make a couple of Spore Crawlers at each of his bases, and then he should be fine. We actually have 2 Void Rays now. It's looking kind of rough for EGIdRA.
Yeah.
Wow. Whoa.
Very cool transfuses.
That was an amazing transfuse. I mean, not amazing enough to save the queen. However, wow,
Yeah.
That was very impressive. It bought him enough time to get that Spore Crawler up. And the only damage that these Void Rays have done for, you know, all the money that you need to dump into making them is they basically forced the Evo chamber and killed the queen.
Yeah, and so EGIdRA's going to have to make use of these things. So he is working on his upgrades, which I think is very nice, making sure he's using the building, you know, after the fact of
not just having it. Yeah.
And then also with these extra queens, he will be able to spread his creep very actively. In fact, he is doing this at this time. Which I think is, you know, the sign of a really good Zerg player, is making sure you're, or a really good player in general, just making sure you're using everything to their full potential. So I like
making
that.
sure you waste absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And EGIdRA is just one of those Zerg players that, at the end of the game, he's probably going to have like 90 creep tumors down, and it's just going to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's going to be creep leading right up to WhiteRa's front door. Maybe even, you know, creeping right into WhiteRa's front door if he's not paying attention.
We do see WhiteRa at this time is working on his third, and EGIdRA did try to shut it down with some Zerglings. However, they were pushed off, and he is going to be rallying up some Roaches and Zerglings and going in for another attack and seeing if he can push this down. I don't know what WhiteRa is going to do at this time, as he only has like a few units. He's building some sentries to get some force fields off, but I don't think it'll be enough. There's a big difference in the army here.
Yeah, the Void Rays are swinging back in. However, still this doesn't look that good for WhiteRa. This is kind of a scarily large army for EGIdRA at this point, especially with the Roaches. Roaches, of course, being very dangerous against basically everything that everything Protoss has early on.
Yeah.
And force fields not being perfect, and there's not having enough sentries, I think, to really hold that position.
Right.
WhiteRa's gonna lose the space.
Yeah, he is. We do see that the Void Rays finally have gotten down here, but not in time, as these Roaches will be able to pick off this Nexus, I believe. It's getting down in the orange, getting down the red, even sending in some more Zerglings to make sure he gets it, and then boom, the second it dies, he's just going to run away, as he knows he doesn't need to take out anything else. He's getting his 4th base up at this time, so he doesn't really need to do any more damage, just needs to continue to keep WhiteRa feeling pressured.
And just as a time check, I'm at 12:06, 07, 08, 09.
Same here.
Alright, good.
Yeah. We do see another wall at the third, just like in that other game we casted with warp gates. And so, and he got it, you know, the hex right and everything. So,
yep.
This is very cool by WhiteRa. He will be able to get this third up, hopefully. But man, EGIdRA's getting his 4th, and his creep spread is immaculate. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome to just watch games like this play out in basically 2 different ways, because the other game had the exact same spawn locations and everything like that. It was kind of just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's very cool to see the differences, and hopefully those players will watch this game, and, you know, they'll learn a lot from it. We do see some Mutalisks in WhiteRa's base at this time, effectively shutting down his main, forcing the probes away, and some Stalkers and a Phoenix coming in at this time to try to pick it off. And WhiteRa will be able to run away. However, he did do a good bit of damage, keeping that base from being mined at for a while.
Yeah, and 14 probes have been killed by EGIdrA, so very annoying for
Yeah.
WhiteRa to have to replace those probes, especially considering the fact that his economy is very much weaker than EGIdRA's. He's like 37 workers
Yeah,
behind.
yeah, his, like, in the income tab we see he's 1,000 minerals behind, finally getting his third saturated up, and even then it's not that saturated, uh, so he really needs to close that gap as soon as he can.
I don't know if he can close that gap because, I mean, he is closing it right now. However, he had half the income for so
Yeah.
long, where it's kind of just getting ridiculous. And the giant Zergling surround is going in, and despite having a fair amount of +1 zealots, you know, the +1 armor Zerglings, it just cancels each other out. And yeah, this isn't looking good for our Protoss player.
Yeah, not looking good at all. We see the Stalkers have come in to reinforce, but they will be picked off by the Zerglings. A lot of Mutalisks still left on the field, and interestingly, WhiteRa does push him away. I don't think EGIdrA wants to lose any Mutalisks if possible, so he will be pushing back, but I think he's done the damage he's needed to do. He knows at this point he's got 4 saturated bases, and his creep spread's everywhere, getting a 5th up. And all he's doing is just saying, alright, I'll just re-rally and push, and then when that dies, I'll just re-rally and push until I win, which he will do.
Yeah. Yeah, he's doing one of, you know, the 300 food Zerg pushes where he just keeps sending units, and I'm not sure how WhiteRa is going to hold this off because, you know, it's 200 versus 84 at this point. And even with, you know, Phoenixes taking a couple of pot shots at the Mutalisks, it doesn't matter. He needs an army that can stand and fight against the Zerg force. And WhiteRa GGing and well played.
Yep. Great game by WhiteRa, great game by EGIdrA. You know, not too long of a game, but it was very cool. I liked what EGIdrA did. I like this very roach-heavy army. Kind of phasing out of the roaches for just a brief period of time to kind of get a little attack in, and then going and building the roaches and going in full force. So I really like that play by EGIdrA. And it was very cool to see WhiteRa's air opening, especially in close air. Would have liked to see it work out a little better than it did, but man, against a player like EGIdrA, you got to be on the ball.
And another really awesome thing that EGIdrA did is that even though, I mean, he probably knew that he was in a ridiculously, you know, he had the upper hand at the end of the game, and even though he had that, you know, he's still going into the infestation pit. He's still researching burrow. He's still researching all of his upgrades. Yeah. His macro just doesn't stop until the other player leaves the game.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out, look at all these creep tumors, man. I mean, there's almost more creep tumors than there is creep. I mean, it's ridiculous, just so many. So he's just super good at his macro, and that's why he won the game, and that's why he does so well.
Yeah, he's ridiculously good at Zerg mechanics. It makes me feel bad whenever I play Zerg.
So, Boisterous, tell us about yourself. Tell us about where we can find your videos and such.
Well, I like to commentate replays from all, you know, walks of life from all players. I don't, you know, just pull pro replays off the line. Although, again, I love commentating pro replays, but I feel like everybody deserves their 15 minutes of fame. So if you want your replay casted by me, send it on in to BoisterousSC2 at gmail.com. Hopefully, me and Cadoink are going to be stepping up these co-casts in the coming weeks in preparation for a tournament that's going to be starting up in June. And if you want to help support that tournament, help be behind it, just go head on over to sc2clans.org, sign up, maybe register your clan, maybe start a team for the clan league. I think we're commentating the cup league, which is bronze to gold. So if you're one of those lower league players and you just want to play in a tournament for fun, and it's going to be a lot of fun, just round up 4 of your friends, round up 4 of your clanmates, round up 4 people that you randomly find on the forums, and then just head on over there and register them as your team, and it should be a lot of fun. And also, if you want to watch any other games I've commentated, head on over to youtube.com/user/BoisterousSC2.
Awesome. Yeah, and you can check me out at youtube.com/user/CadoinkStudios, or you can just type CadoinkStudios into the search and you should be able to find me. I do a lot of pro replays. I also cast a few replays from friends and that sort of thing, and then I do a few other games here and there. So yeah, check us out, and we will have more replays for you in the near future. So anyway, this has been Cadoink.
And this is Boisterous.
We are signing out. We will see you guys later.